Welcome, everyone, to Sophia Unveiled, the fierce love of holy wisdom, where we're learning about how holy wisdom never left this planet and is alive and well all around us, especially in our own hearts. As we embrace this truth, we become the sovereign, valiant leaders of this new time on earth. I'm your host, Kathy Forrest, founder of Celestial Forest Institute, and I'm so delighted and excited to be here with my dear friend, Star Wolf. Welcome. Welcome, Star Wolf. So good to have you.
Thank you, Kathy. It's a pleasure to be with you again. It's been a little while, but we've done some great things and fun things together, so it's great to be here again.
So Linda's, Linda Star Wolf, PhD, has been a shamanic visionary, teacher, and guide to thousands of people over the past 4 decades. She began her career as a mental health therapist in the 1970s and later became an addiction specialist in the 1990s. For more than 30 years, Star Wolf was nationally certified alcohol and drug counselor. Inspired by progressive spiritual teachers from around the world, she studied with Eastern yogis and breathwork pioneers, including Ram Dass, Leonard Orr, who was the founder of Rebirthing Breathwork, Stan Grof, founder of Holotropic Breathwork, and Jacqueline Small, founder of Integrative Breathwork, among others. In the 1990s, Star Wolf became a lead breathwork trainer at the
Yeah.
Eusychia Institute, while deepening her studies of shamanic earth wisdom teachings originating from indigenous elders. Among these were the Wolf Clan teachings of Twyla Niche, the beloved Seneca Wolf Clan grandmother. Twyla later recognized and adopted Star Wolf as a spiritual granddaughter and lineage carrier, bestowing upon her the name Star Wolf. Today, she draws from her own path of direct experience while honoring the lineages she carries from her teachers. The author of 13 psychospiritual books, Star Wolf is the creator of shamanic breathwork and shamanic healing initiatory process, or SHIP. She is the founder of Phoenix Rising Association for Transformation, a nonprofit organization, and the founding president of Venus Rising University, the Shamanic Psychospiritual Studies. Together with her husband, Nicholas Wolf, she co-founded Shamanic Mystery Tours, guiding seekers to sacred sites around the world. Her lifelong purpose is to support personal transformation and raise planetary consciousness of love and wisdom, one breath at a time. And I was telling Star Wolf before we got started, I know that Sophia sent her to me because her topic today is Shamanic Magdalene, embodying Sophia, divine wisdom. And she's going to do an Aquarian activation to awaken Sophia within. So lots of fun, juicy things. I'm so excited. So, Star Wolf, let's start with a little background. How long have you been connected to the divine, sacred, priestess, feminine personally?
My first thing that came to my mind is since the beginning of time,
Right.
before time,
Right.
While we're sitting here for a moment, I'm going to go ahead and just turn around to my altar and bring my altar into this. And you'll see me, I have a roll around chair. This is quite fun, quite frankly. And I have
Right.
a huge altar. My whole room here is a huge altar, as you can see. But especially want to acknowledge and honor Magdalene and Venus, Guadalupe, and the Black Holy Virgin, Sophia, the goddesses all throughout Europe and all around the world, from Egypt to France to the Netherlands, the EU, the UE, to, of course, the beautiful goddesses here in the United States and all around the world and beyond. And to specifically call them in with the purity of the Holy Spirit, the swan, sent to me and by a beloved graduate student from Iceland, a swan that left its body naturally, and she sent it for our ceremonies.
Very beautiful.
And so sending that smoke to everybody to just, for me, I've been smudging for probably about 50 years now. And each time I light the smoke, I immediately, I'm like the dog that's trained, Pavlov's dog with the minute now. Now I'm a wolf that's trained. That the moment that that smell comes in, that it activates certain centers, not only from this lifetime, but from many others. And
Right.
remembering the smell that is a thread in our DNA that reminds us and helps us to use our wolfy noses and to take us home to our hearts and our consciousness and our past. So the first thing I want to say is that I've been working, it feels strange to say working, but it is work.
It is
It's
work.
work. It is work to unravel and to take ourselves apart and to, kind of put ourselves in different pieces. And that is part of Sophia's journey. That is part of Inanna's journey. To unveil the goddess, it also means the shamanic death and rebirth, taking ourselves apart so that we can let go of what conditioning that we've had that may not be positive or helpful or even true.
Right.
And so we begin to dismember consciously.
Mm-hmm.
May not feel that way some days, but we begin to dismember the old programs and we allow something to come through us called Sophia,
Mm-hmm.
which is wisdom, divine wisdom. It is the feminine face of the
Yeah.
Godhead, goddess. It's genderless. It's a they,
Mm-hmm.
if you will. So for me, I came to this energy many, many years ago, and it became a path of gnosis, of knowledge, of wisdom, and knowing that it was going to be a lifetime or lifetimes of remembering and
Yeah.
beginning to have the courage to walk that path and to embody that in a world that's so estranged and even resistant and even violent sometimes, as
Mm-hmm.
we see what happens to women all the time, anytime they come into a place of wisdom or knowing.
Mm-hmm.
So it's very much a perfect time for Sophia to say, enough.
Exactly.
Enough. You guys have had the patriarchy, you have had a good long time.
To
It's
figure it
our
out.
turn. We're
Yeah.
not gonna, neuter you. We're not going to do, we're not gonna do anything,
Mm-hmm.
but we are gonna ask you to step aside. It's
Mm-hmm.
our turn, and we're not even gonna raise our hand. We're gonna take our hips and sway them and whoop,
Yeah.
to the
Yeah.
side you go.
Yeah.
And if you could play nice in the sandbox with you, we'll let you back in.
I
You know,
love it. I love it.
but for right now, it's our turn. And unfortunately, in some places, I'll just say this and I'll come back to you, but in some places, the patriarch is so patriarchal energy, I should say the negative patriarchy is so ingrained in so many cultures all around the world. It doesn't matter if it's the United States and Israel, and Iran, it doesn't, the whole world, you know,
Mhm.
as my friend Jennifer Barazan who sings says, the whole world is burning.
Right.
And that is true. And so it's like the patriarchy has taken it to as far as it can.
Yeah.
And it's time to say, I believe within all of us, the patriarchy needs to surrender
Yeah.
to that feminine consciousness now and say, it's our turn to see what we can return, what the wisdom that can return that's been here,
Mhm.
but also to bring in, as my teacher, Jacqueline Small from Yesaikia, 45 years used to say, it's our turn to bring in the new dispensation for the true new age or new
Right.
era or new aeon.
Yeah.
So Sophia, this is her time. If she's
Yeah,
going to really come through, and I don't think she's going to come flying through the sky with a second coming. I think that she's going to happen right here
yeah,
in the hearts, in the heart womb of all of us.
yeah. I agree. Um, can you speak into just help our listeners understand exactly what you mean when you say the path of gnosis? Because I think that, I mean, it sounds mystical, but nobody really knows what that means. And when they find out, they may understand why it's been so difficult.
Yeah. Well, there's a difference, between, um, education and learning, in a certain way, that's more linear.
Yeah. Mhm.
And certainly we have to have linear. I mean, if you're going to go outside and travel from here to another state, if I'm going to drive from North Carolina, the mountains down to Florida, I need a map. And I need for it to be, even though it may go over mountains and by the oceans and the backwoods and whatever, I need a fairly direct route.
Mhm.
I'm not able to just like lift up, unless I go on a plane, but even then, they have a route
Yeah,
that they're on and a definite place that they take off from and end. With gnosis, it's quite different.
exactly. Yeah.
You start out thinking you're on this straight path where you're going to go from here to here. And people say, well, you get distracted. No, you realize that it's not what? A linear path. It is not a straight line. And you say, well, then that means you're lost. You're in a circle. No, it doesn't mean that you're in just a circle going round and round and chasing your tail. What it means is that we're dancing in a spiral all the time of birth, life, death. Ooh, I feel like lions and tigers and bears. Oh my,
Exactly.
you
That's
know,
what it feels like.
but it's birth and then life and then death and then whoops, rebirth.
Mhm.
You know, there's, Yeshua said, there is no death.
Mhm.
Where is death? What he was saying, what I believe and what I've studied others is not new to most of us, is that what he was saying is that to every end, there is a beginning. To
Mhm.
every beginning, there is an end. And what we call life and experience is what happens in between birth and death. And that is the shamanic journey. That is the wisdom journey of how do we die a million times and rebirth a million times, just like the 100 trillion cells in our bodies are doing every day. They're pretty
Mhm.
cool. They're pretty smart. They know how to do it. They just do it without thinking about it, or
Mhm.
not much anyway. They're just constantly, oh, you got to cut. Let's get that taken care of. Oh, you got to sneeze. Let's get that out of there. Got to go to the bathroom here. Let's take care of that. They know exactly what to release, and also, we need to breathe. Make sure you're breathing. Keep breathing your breath in. Take that food in that's going to nurture you. Let that love in that's going to nurture and support your heart. So there's a huge wisdom in our cells, our bones, our history, our herstory,
Mhm.
our ancestors, the future teachings that are coming in. There's so much wisdom, gnosis,
Got it.
that's already inherent. It's not
Mhm.
like, oh, I've got to get all this wisdom. I've got to read every book on the shelf. I've got to, 10, 50,000 seminars. The biggest reality, I think, about at least people who come to our things, our events with Venus Rising, whether it's trainings or, mystery schools, and we can say, well, these are teachings, these are learnings, these are mystery schools, this is depth, mysticism and psychology, which it is, shamanism and all that. But if I'm totally honest with people, which I want to be, it's really like what's going to happen, hopefully, is that if you come in and surrender to yourself, not me, but to yourself, and you listen and learn from here and here, you're going to remember. And that's what shamanism is about, is remembering, taking back parts of yourself. Remember. And that is the wisdom, is that we came from great mystery.
Mhm.
We're all God's favorite kid. Every
Mhm.
one of us, the goddess that thinks we're the bee's knees. We're
Mhm.
absolutely, And that and that energy can truly love all of humanity as one huge being. And
Mhm.
it wants us to have this divine wisdom and this love. And
Mhm.
it wants us to remember that we are royalty.
Exactly.
We are. We are the sons and daughters and theys of God, Goddess, all that is. That's pretty royal. That's pretty special, you
Yeah.
know? And at the same time, and I grew up in the Baptist church and a little girl going to Bible school and stuff and everything. So I may not have understood it, but I had read the Bible back and forth a dozen times before I was 16 years old. And
Mhm.
some of it was like, what? He did what? Why did, where is it? And then I get to the good parts with JC, and it's like, oh, okay, this I can relate more to, and, Yeshua and that sort of thing. So it's like there's a whole part of us that has to unlearn and get out of our way.
Mhm.
And that's really to me what Sophia is about.
Mhm.
And she's manifested so big right now. I know you know this, but she's manifesting so hugely right now in the form of the return of Magdalene.
Yeah.
People are Magdalene Gaga right now. Magdalene is the new Gaga, Lady
Exactly.
Gaga.
Exactly.
And because Gaga is like, like she is. And it's like, and even the fellows are saying, well, I want to know more about Magdalene,
Mhm.
and I'm like,
Mhm.
well, you know, she's Yeshua's. It's not like his better half or his other half. They are one being.
Mhm.
They are one being in that dimension where the feminine and the masculine and they come together in that holy, sacred marriage. They become the Trinity. The I, and the thou,
Mhm.
becomes this divine unity of consciousness.
Mhm.
And that's the possibility for every being, every human being,
Mhm.
regardless of culture or class or education or status or belief or whatever. You don't even have to believe it, or hear anything about it to know it. I think a lot of the people that live here in the mountains of West Northern Carolina that really still live some of the old ways here, I really think they have it. That
Yeah.
they're unified in that way within themselves with how they eat and how they grow things and their prayers to the land and yet their prayers to Jesus all at the same time.
Yeah.
And the
Yeah.
native people that are real close here too. So, it's mystical and it's mysticism and it's esoteric and it's right here with us,
Yeah.
right in underneath our feet.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. So let's dive into the details a little bit. Who is Sophia to you, and when and where did you first connect deeply with her wisdom?
Well, I'll just hold it up. I'm not going to read it, obviously. Like this is a
Okay.
dissertation, right?
Mhm.
Of that I wrote. I was going to Matthew Fox's school. For those of you who do not know Matthew Fox, please look him up. He's written
Yeah.
more spiritual books, and this is reality. It's not me exaggerating for a change. It's true that he has
Mhm.
written the most amount of spiritual books in the Western world on
Mhm.
spirituality. And he created a school. He was a Catholic priest. I don't know if he still carries that anymore because I think he had a huge falling out eventually I know did with the Catholic Church. I don't think they ever reinstated him where he wanted to be. But anyway, back in the 1990s, he became good friends with Starhawk, who was a witch, and the Vatican really didn't like that.
Right. For sure.
They told him no, and he said okay. He just said okay, you don't like it. He didn't say okay, I'll quit. And so
Right.
they put him on suspension, and he went out into the world following Sophia.
Mhm.
And he and Starhawk went out and they gallivanted around some, which made the Vatican even angrier.
Mhm. Mhm.
I have a feeling the Vatican actually, with this new pope, might actually be more chill and cool about this.
Mhm.
But this is a long time ago. But
Mhm.
anyway, and they went out to out west, out into the plains, and they went out and did sweat lodges, and they did all these things on his sabbatical. And then when he came back, they sent him. I remember I was at his school that he'd started. Well, wisdom. It was Sophia. It was wisdom. And I remember he came in one day and he said, "Well, I received a pink slip from the Vatican."
Oh no.
It's like, what's this? I'm officially out.
Mm,
And so at that point, he says, it's okay, He said he was willing to stay. He was willing to be that bridge, but he said, it's
mhm,
okay, And from that point forward, he started doing shamanic, spiritual rave dances at his school.
mhm,
And he brought in Japanese artists in to body paint each other. I mean, he just did everything. And he invited me to do shamanic breath work there. I had just birthed it.
mhm,
And so I
mhm,
breathed a huge group of people in his school, in his big auditorium of shamanic breath work.
mhm,
But I also took a class on mysticism. It was called Sophia.
mhm, mhm,
And so oh, it was so beautiful. And they were bringing in people who had brought in the Nag Hammadi. They had studied it and they brought in a few fragments
mhm,
under a glass.
mhm,
And the guy spoke about it and said what it was and how it had been found and how it went way back further than what people thought. And it might take decades and decades for it to all be put together. And a lot of it was just too crumbly. Well, we could never pull it back together. But anyway, that we just got to be energetically, by this glass globe with this in here. And he talked to us about um, some of the things they had read that were actually very controversial in comparison with the Bible as we know it,
mhm,
and spoke about Yeshua
mhm,
uh, kissing um, his Magdalene, if you will, or his Sophia,
mhm,
up on the lips.
mhm,
And they called her She of Thunder
mhm,
and all that kind of thing. So, anyway, then we were challenged to write something. It didn't have to be about Sophia, but it needed to be about wisdom and spirituality. So I wrote this about Sophia's story,
mhm,
not
mhm.
the patriarchal story, but Sophia's story
Very
about what happened with Adam and Eve and all of that.
cool.
And I'm just going to say on the back because obviously I can't read this to you, but maybe I'll publish it someday.
Yeah, that would be
But
awesome.
on, but on the back, he says, Star Wolf, this is an incisive, thoughtful, creative piece. You have
Mhm,
integrated the Sophia text into an important re-mythological story of the Genesis story. Your combination of Sophia and Eve is very challenging, but clear.
mhm,
I didn't know if I was challenging him or whatever. Anyway, the centrality of the eating of the fruit in the tree is a spiritually evocative. I was saying how she was supposed to, and it wasn't a sin, and she was inviting, um, if you would, she was inviting Adam to embody his sensuality and his feminine side. Anyway, that goes on there. All of this is clearly connected to the larger work that you do, and it is quite a fine piece.
very cool.
This I will always treasure because this was from a high scholar there, and
Right,
I was a little girl from Kentucky that
right.
don't get my verbs right sometimes. But anyway,
So, what was Sophia's transmission and wisdom message for you?
the message for me that she talks about is that we're supposed to incarnate, that we were not born in sin, that Eve did not tempt Adam, that she just said, "Hey, I'm waking up to consciousness. Would you like to join me?"
Mhm, mhm,
And he said, "Sure, baby, anything to be with you, that
mhm,
she had this awareness.
mhm,
And, patriarchy has it this kind of the other way around, it was this way. And then, Eve drew, Adam off track, and then that created the downfall. It was really, if they had been able to understand it, it seems from what came through,
mhm,
is that they were there as innocent and a beautiful divine couple
mhm,
meant to create other human beings,
mhm.
gods on earth, if you will, and into their divinity, and that
Yeah.
they had special gifts to offer, and that there was no sin.
Mhm,
You
mhm,
know, sin means simply falls short or a mistake. There was
mhm.
no mistake. What you're just going to say God screwed up? I mean, like, whoops, look
Right.
the other way for a minute, and there they were eating apples and hanging out with snakes. But, but but the beauty of it is that the ancient people who wrote about this translated her into Sophia, which means wisdom.
Exactly.
that she wasn't only sexuality, it was wisdom.
Yeah.
And that Adam had his own kind of wisdom. There was a way in which he was really, if you look at the truth that they talked about the green man, he was the green man. He
Mhm.
was in the garden. He
Yeah.
was tending to the earth
Mhm.
right along with his mate. He was tending to the garden and the creatures and the fruits and the vegetables and the life itself was something that he cherished. So, like Dionysus or the green man, or in Egypt, it would be Geb, the
Mhm.
earth god, all that. They were right along with the goddess of protecting the earth. And they
Mhm.
were fertility gods. And people, oh, fertility gods. Oh,
Mhm.
that meant that they were fertile, that they were like the bees, they were like the birds and the bees. They were bringing the beauty of creation to this dark planet because in the beginning, it was the void here.
Yeah.
It was darkness and it was a void. And the Creator said, "Let there be light." And that light penetrated the dark and life began.
Mhm.
And then they were the ones, whether it's archetypally, metaphorically, it doesn't matter. It's all it's truth, regardless.
Mhm.
That they whoever they were there to tend the garden and create a beautiful paradise
Mhm.
for human beings to have, for spirit beings to have human experiences on this earth.
Yeah.
And perhaps, I don't know, maybe the plan was always to have, darkness come in. Maybe there's absolutely no accident. I know that I've learned from some of my worst screw ups,
Mhm.
you know.
Yeah.
But eventually the point is you learn.
Mhm. Yeah, for sure.
If you keep on, it's called addiction.
Yeah,
There's no
exactly.
more learning.
Mhm.
There's hitting bottom and perhaps complete devastation and death and harm to others.
Mhm.
So that's my thoughts on Sophia, and that we're calling her back at this time because Sophia herself is that wisdom that has to come into something. It's such
Mm.
a high frequency, Kathy. It
Mhm.
has to come in. We have to open like we do with, ceremony, like in breath work, or even the speech
Mhm.
can activate, like what we're doing here. But
Mhm.
it's meant to open us.
Yeah.
It's meant to trigger us. It's meant to activate us so that we go someplace as a human
Mhm.
that we haven't gone before. And there's a new gnosis, meaning a light enlightenment
Mhm.
that happens.
Yeah.
And that is Sophia.
Yeah.
Sophia means wisdom.
Right. Right. Why do you think that many people are connecting the two, Magdalene as Sophia incarnate or the vessel or priestess of Sophia's consciousness? Why do you think that's happening?
Well, I love that question. I love to ponder it myself.
Mhm. Mhm.
I think, we bad girls need a chance to say, wait a minute,
Mhm.
you know.
Yeah.
And I say that tongue in cheek. I don't believe we're bad girls. But I think that, you know, I say JC came in at a very tough time. And
He
he
did.
came because it was like, I think his dad said, and his mom too probably said, "Do you think you can go do something with, like we're older, we're tired. Wonder if you might go down and like see if you can straighten things out, And you know, just don't get yourself crucified or anything, but just go down there and, see what you can do."
Right.
And it's like for me, it feels like mm, that Christ, if you will, needed the feminine Christ as well.
Mhm. Mhm.
That the masculine needed the feminine by his side.
Mhm.
And that it wasn't like, well, this is this and this is this. But during the time, because of just like it is now in its own way, what was recognized was what? The masculine. It was,
Mhm.
patriarchy was well on its way. It had been for a long time, and and with that, Magdalene was there. It feels to me like that they were like twin souls,
Yeah.
and that, if you will, that the gnosis, Christ energy, and Sophia, her wisdom, that they were the children, if you will, of the gods,
Mhm.
or the emanation or the embodiment of the gods. And that Magdalene herself was an embodiment of the divine Christ herself.
Yeah.
She was Christed as well.
Mhm.
And that means, and Christ means consciousness.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
she was aware of that as well. And it's interesting, that Christ had more, Yeshua had more of a divine birth, and, even though it was in, a little barn with the creatures and stuff, but the three wise men came and things like that. People don't really talk about, Magdalene and where, we know she was of Magda and different things and stuff. We don't really know how she was born or this or that.
Mhm.
But my guess is because she's frequently been, called that woman,
Mhm.
or the harlot or that sort of thing, is that she had a little bit rougher time.
Mhm.
I mean, let's face it, women are the ones that give birth.
Mhm.
Okay. I'm not sure why that's, that's not shared exactly in that way. And of course, the other gender they have their own challenges, definitely.
Yeah.
But there's something about her needing to be closer to the earth
Mhm.
and to the surfing, as I should say, the suffering.
Mhm.
In some ways, and no disrespect, JC, but he's a guy kind of in his head, you
Mhm.
know, and he's getting all these downloads and he's channeling and he's connected and he's in this spiritual space and forgive everybody and, and he's very enlightened and all that. And Magdalene's like down here washing his feet,
Mhm.
and drying it with her hair,
Yeah. Yeah.
she's on the earth.
Mhm.
And she's looking around and saying people are hungry. And he said, well, let's feed them,
Mhm.
you know? And
Yeah.
she's like, okay, you know, so, fishes and the loaves or
Mhm.
whatever. They were a great team.
Mhm.
I get chills in my body just saying that. I just feel like they were made for one another and probably were.
Mhm.
And and they both knew it,
Mhm.
you know?
Yeah.
I
Mhm.
think of that in my own relationship, with over my lifetime of being in love, and
Mhm.
especially with my beloved right now, is I feel like that in many ways we play this part out all the time,
Mhm. Yeah, for
and
sure.
we support each other and we have different tasks. Now we can each do what we need to do, even if we needed to without the other. Certainly I've done that, and
Sure.
he has too. But together there's a way in which we can divide and say, you're better at this than I am.
Mhm.
You care to do that? Well, you're better than that with this. Would you care to do that? And with that, we get a lot accomplished, very
Mhm.
creative, we feel supported, and there's a way in which our relationship is much more, and I don't mean to sound arrogant or dismiss other relationships, but I don't think I'm here to have a regular relationship. You know, just being who I am and what I've done my whole life, I need a man who's extremely grounded
Mhm.
and spiritual at the same time, but
Mhm.
who can also take care of the technology because I tend to blow it out.
Right? Yeah, I understand.
You
Oh,
understand?
yeah.
And we meet, there's a lot of places we meet with the things that we love in
Mhm.
life and our love for one another and for other people in our work.
Mhm.
But there's also very specific things that he shines with and that he makes life better. And the same I know goes for me with him. And with that, we're able to mm, really manifest a lot in our lives. That's really good, not
Right.
just for us, but for others.
So would you say then that Sophia energy is important right now for everybody?
I do believe that. I remember I grew up in the Baptist church, so I can get a little fundamentalist, a little shadow popping out there.
Yeah.
But I think, and I feel that I'm in love with so many things. Like I said, you can look at my altars, and if you could see my whole room, I've
Mhm.
got, I'm looking right here at Ganesha and Krishna and Tara, and the Wolf Clan, and I'm Aquarian in that way. I'm multi-dimensional, multifaceted and that was my main studies in the school there, which is see how they all were different streams of consciousness leading back to the same point.
Mhm.
And that's what I've found over and over and over and over, that all life-giving spiritual teachings and wisdom seem to have one source.
Yeah.
And there's always the ones that don't incarnate fully.
Mhm.
Okay. And then there's the ones that do incarnate.
Mhm.
And I think it's kind of like holding like I'm here with you today and that sort of thing energetically, and Nicholas is behind the scenes making sure the technology's going and all that kind of thing. So, and that could be if we were doing retreat and teaching, that could be the opposite,
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
we are fluid gender in that way.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I can take that phallic energy when he's like, I've had it, I'm tired, or I'm like, I can't have one more creative thought. He'll laugh hearing me say that because he says sometimes like, I can't hear any more creative thoughts.
I can only imagine. How fun. How fun. Wow. Well, Miss Starwolf, it sounds like your life has been the embodiment of Sophia. And you said earlier that you wanted to share a journey with
Yeah.
people. Would you like to do that now?
Yes. Now, do you have that there or? Oh, okay.
Oh,
I'm just going to do that with a drum, right?
yeah,
Okay.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I would love to do that. I always love to give people a little experiential after they've suffered through listening to me yak for an hour, or whatever. And this little squirrel just popped up here and looked in the window. Hello, you want to hear it too? She said, I want to hear Sophia. Anyway, yes, I will
Okay.
do a little journey for people if they would like. And I just think, that during this time, that this is the time, I think, and that my Wolf Clan grandmama would say, you can see her there,
Yeah.
that this is the time for huge embodiment of spirit upon the planet.
Yeah.
It's an important time to welcome not only the true nature of the Christ energy of Yeshua,
Mhm.
but to also really wholeheartedly apologize to the feminine
Yeah.
in all beings
Mhm.
and to welcome the divine feminine, to
Yeah.
welcome back Sophia wisdom and not leave it out in the esoteric world,
Mhm.
to
Great.
bring back that embodiment of the Magdalene
Mhm.
who had that beautiful Sophic energy, but lived it in everyday life
Yeah.
and was not afraid to wash Yeshua's feet with her hair
Mhm.
and her heart. So this is an inner journey to bring together your own Magdalene and Yeshua, the Sophia. Sophia is the embodiment that comes through Yeshua and Magdalene.
Mhm.
But it originates with Sophia, which originates from the heart, if you will, of the overlords of this planet, of God. God is all that is. And we all be filled with this spirit. So wherever you are, I invite you to, unless you're driving or walking, to close your eyes and to take just a few minutes to sit back wherever you are. Interesting, I pulled from my Egyptian oracle deck that I co-created with Nikki Scully several years ago, the Shamanic Mysteries of Egypt and the Nubis Oracle. I pulled Wajet, and she is definitely the Kundalini energy. She's Kundalini, life force, purification, and the divine awakener. And she opens our heart so that we can see. She's got that all-seeing eye.
Beautiful.
This is the guidance for this trip, if you will, this little journey.
Mhm.
Wajet to help Magdalene. She needs a little Kundalini life force energy blown back into her and welcomed back.
Mhm.
So wherever you are, if you can, just close your eyes and take a nice big deep breath. through your nose if you can, and then exhale through your mouth and your heart. And comfortably closing your eyes, opening your heart. Little birds outside my window just started singing. Da-da-la, da-da-la. Nature's always saying, we were here all along, just waiting. Whenever I journey, I always encircle us with the divine light, the Christ, the Christos, the highest golden white light we can imagine, that is so pure and powerful. It illuminates everything so that we can truly see within ourselves and each other. We can see what's happened in the past. We can see what needs to be corrected, forgiven, transformed. And it can see the vision of what it could be. But what good is a mind without a heart? Hear that other heart beating now next to the light. It's a different kind of light. It's soft. It's not the piercing light. It's not the power light of spirit. It's the soul light of the soul and the heart. It's the energy of Magdalene. She's barefooted. Her hair is wild. And Sophia lives in every cell of her body. It loves in such a fierce, ferocious way. And yet it's so tender, with a holy longing to embody the wisdom of Yeshua, while surrendering the softness of her love, as well as her fierce devotion. This beautiful energy comes together. It swirls. You can envision this any way you choose. As two forces or two lights, as the above and the below, the within, the without, the east and the west, the north and the south. On this earth, there's opposites everywhere. Political parties, opposing views. The only thing that I know, the only thing I've discovered on my 73-year voyage is it takes human kindness, loving kindness. It begins inside of ourselves with absolutely doing the inner work to love ourselves, to know that we are loved, that we were not born in sin, that we were born and loved. And wherever we are now in our paths, whatever ages, whatever we've learned, discarded, relearned in a new way on our spiral path, perhaps it's time for that deep, sacred marriage within. perhaps it's time for Sophia's divine wisdom to enter into the soul and the imaginal cells where all future comes from are activated with this divine wisdom. Feel yourself now activated. Filled with gnosis, with wisdom, with Christ's light shining and guiding you on your path of loyalty, that you will not be alone in the darkest night. And that the Holy Spirit, Sophia, activates your Kundalini, makes you passionate, the passion that gives you courage to do the impossible. And the impossible is simply this: to love thyself and to love thy neighbor. So take a deep breath. Come back slowly as you exhale. And I encourage you, you have a few minutes after this, to pull out your journal and to draw whatever just comes to you. You don't even have to know what you're going to draw or color or finger paint. And if you don't want to do that, you can just maybe write down some words that pop in your consciousness, or if you had a specific journey or message, to write that down before you forget. Okay, it will still be there. But when you make the word flesh, when you make Sophia Magdalene, it's easier to remember it when you're in form.
Yeah.
So write it down and put it someplace where you can see it regularly. And you might find yourself repeating it out loud as you're looking outside, or as you're driving the car, or as you're going to sleep, or doing the dishes, whatever.
Mhm.
And remember, Sophia's story is your story.
Mm.
It's yours. It belongs to you. No one can take your spirit from you
Yeah.
except you.
Wow. Linda, thank you.
Mm.
That was incredible. I had my own little experience that I will write down.
I want to
But we,
hear it.
I could just, it was, I could just feel it for a moment. It was like my consciousness stepped out of the way, and then I could just see through her eyes, through, like, I was just looking. It was bizarre, but I knew it's like, usually when those things happen, I've had those before. Um, I'll just watch the change. I'll just watch what happens, because Katie barred the door. So thank you for that. I so appreciate it. I wasn't expecting it, but yum. And I hope all of our listeners got to have a similar experience. So do exactly what she told you to do, write it down. Star Wolf, thank you. Thank you for your wisdom. Thank you for sharing your gifts with us. It was exquisite. And I know that you and Nicholas are going to do even more great things in the future. So thank you.
Thank you, Kathy. You keeping the faith all these years means a lot, through COVID, through everything, we've been on several events together, and I admire and respect your tenacity and your dedication and walking your own Sophia's path. And thank you for this, because to me, this is the work that needs to be done personally. And for those of us who are planetary workers and who recognize that, to be in full force right now as much as we can, and to do that in as conscious and loving way, an honest way as we can.
Yeah. Thank you.